All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there and a part of the Men in Blazers media network. No Brandon with us tonight, but you do have myself, Dan, alongside Nick, and we are going to be reliving, unfortunately, a very lackluster victory in the FA Cup against Leeds by Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. We'll also be getting a little bit into the big questions coming out of the match after what was a very unfortunate bounce back-ish performance against the championship side. And then, as a special treat, as joining a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network, we had one of the Men in Blazers himself, Rog Bennett, join us for about 15 to 20 minutes to chat about the history of the podcast, what's going on at Men in Blazers this summer and into the future, because the future of soccer/football is now. And we wanted to chat a little bit about that with him. So if you're looking for something more uplifting, just skip to that part of the episode. But otherwise, we're going to lock it in here, Nick, and we're going to get into the fact that we had to fit another midweek match in between meetings, in between activities, in between the workday. How did you get out of it to see any of the match today?
A lot of multitasking today, Dan. A lot of multitasking. It seems as if we weren't the only ones multitasking. Perhaps, some of the team were as well. Maybe they were, doing some accounting. Maybe their stock portfolios were up and down. Maybe they were doing some day trading whilst running around on the pitch. It seems as if it was a pretty consistent theme amongst the entire Chelsea contingent today. And it's really interesting. I think to feel the way we do about this result, and talking a little bit before the show, because we have been to Stamford Bridge to see Chelsea beat Leeds 1-0. We've been to Ellen Road to see Chelsea beat Leeds 3-0. And Chelsea leads in the FA Cup. It's like the most historic FA Cup final ever, and this was a midweek match against the championship Leeds, and Chelsea kind of floundered through it. And you don't leave this feeling as good as you could have felt, especially after the disappointment of Sunday. So a lot of complex emotions happening across the Chelsea universe right now.
We'll say Chelsea do keep a pristine record in domestic cup against Leeds with this victory. It was a record that could have gone down as one of the many that Chelsea have just thrown asunder this season into the wind very cavalierly with the way that we've played at times, giving away unfortunate records in our sense to a lot of teams. We did not gift it fully though, but as we do on the top of every episode, we're going to give a little bit of a 3-word match review to give you an in case you missed it type of assessment from the listeners. And Nick, with no Brandon here, you get the honors of running through a couple of thoughts from the listeners.
Leeds makes a lot of these, so you're going to hear a lot of puns and good stuff in here, so I appreciate that. First up, Spanish Joe with Gallagher. Leeds comeback. Well said. Hard to argue. Andres with not great, but I think we're going to talk about what comes after that. Golden Iris 95 with missed connections everywhere. Perhaps some of our team missed flights to get to the game. I'm not sure. It's entirely possible. Neo with Potch, no patterns. Megan with lackluster, late triumph. That's very well said. And then Sloth on holiday, which, honest to God, that's such a good handle. I love that so much. With Cobham cobbled win. So lots of mixed emotions just on the 3-word match reviews there, Dan.
Yeah, I went with stringing us along because it's a consistent theme this season that when we're at the precipice, when we're ready to hit the eject button, Chelsea find a way to pull you back in, and a little, as you've said many times this season, rope-a-dope action from Chelsea. So we're continuing to get strung along.
Yeah, I went with leading, lagging indicators. There are those across the board, just in case you were curious. And of course, I use Leeds as a pun because they are nothing if not pun worthy.
Well, nothing fun about Dirty Leads, that's for sure. A quick bit of admin before we get you going. Just thank you for everyone who supports the podcast. You can do so, as always, with 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified on YouTube. We cleared 30,000 subscribers. Help us find more. Like and comment on the videos, too. It's very nice. You can sign up to our free weekly newsletter. I hasten to think what Sam is going to be talking about this midweek, but boy, oh boy, you should be subscribed because I think it's going to be a doozy. And then you also can join in the conversation in our free or paid Discord, but not required to pay to get into the conversation and the action. But as we take a look at the match, it was Dirty Leeds this past Wednesday, February the 28th, the last day of the month. Chelsea snuck in one more win to make the calendar month look that much better. It was in the FA Cup at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 3, Dirty Leeds 2. Started in the 8th minute with Joseph getting his first senior goal for Leeds. And then Chelsea did turn it around in the 15th minute with Nico Jackson, assist from Caicedo. 37th minute, Mykhailo Mudryk gets a goal with a Sterling assist. And then Joseph with his second goal on the night. That's right, he was riding a hat trick as of the 59th minute. And Anthony again, second assist, but it was Connor Gallagher in the 90th minute with an Enzo Fernandez assist that sees Chelsea advance into the next round of the competition. But boy, oh boy, Joseph was a few inches away from a hat trick, and that would have been extra time. So not only thanks to Connor Gallagher for scoring a winning goal, which he unfortunately could not get done on the weekend. I would have maybe said we would have let somebody else get the winning goal in this one if he could have gotten one.
Yeah. I would swap those. Yeah, for sure.
Uno reverse. That would have been nice. But ultimately, we got the job done and we didn't have to go to extra time, which is a very, very nice bit of salvation for these players who are only a few days away from having to play Brentford, who look ready to attack and come after this side. So how did Pochettino, with Chelsea going to extra time against Liverpool, line up, Nick, knowing that also Nkunku went out for a month after realizing that he is maybe a relative of the character of Mr. Glass from the M. Night Shyamalan flicks?
Yeah, I mean that's something we should talk about in our second segment. But yeah, team was set up a little bit differently today, and you know I think if you've followed FA Cups this late in, typically, you know, teams are pretty gassed this time of year, right? They played a lot of football up to this point. And so you do see some of the bigger sides exercise their full squads, and you know that's exactly what Leeds did today. They also exercised their B squad against us and left some of their bigger names on the bench. So our squad, which is more important, looked like Robert Sanchez for the first time since late November, I think, against Manchester United or Everton, actually, resumes his role in goal. It was not a phenomenal performance, to say the least, but it was fine, I guess. Malo Gusto plays right back. Disasi and Trev Chalobah making a start, and that was an interesting one. And Alfie Gilchrist at left back, for reasons. Then Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez because we have no other fit midfielders, and Raheem Sterling, and on the left wing, Mykhailo Mudryk in the number 10 role, which we'll for sure talk about as a tactical adjustment, and Noni Madueke as the right winger with Nicholas Jackson up top. Used subs of Connor Gallagher in the 61st minute, Ben Chilwell in the 61st minute, Levi Colwill in the 74th minute, Cole Palmer in the 74th minute, and Jimmy Torainen in the 90th minute gets his debut, which is really cool. Unused subs of Petrovic, Samuel Smith, Murray Campbell, and Ollie Harrison. So lots of youngsters on the bench for this one. Obviously, the injury situation is still out of control. The media has stopped reporting on that, which is very convenient post-Liverpool. But yeah, very interesting lineup, some adjustments made, and I don't really know where else to go with that one, Dan. I think 5 subs made, and it sure looked like it for the first 10 minutes.
Well, as we look at some of the top line stats, Chelsea with 1.22 XG to 1.44 for Leeds. Both teams overperforming, but not a great look on either side. We have 51% of the ball at home, to the championship side at 49%. We had 10 shots to their 13 in total, 5 shots on target to their 3, 4 off target to their 6, and then 1 block shot to their 4. We're taking a look at some of the other stats of note. We had 9 fouls to their 8, 3 yellow cards, though, to their 1. I think a few of our players seem contractually obligated at this point to get it done. We only had 1 big chance the entire night, where Leeds had 4 in total. They missed 2 of them. So on another night, could have done a little bit better. And we had 1 goalkeeper save. Shock to their 2. With one random stat, 2002, Connor Gallagher strike against Leeds was Chelsea's first 90th minute winning goal in the FA Cup since John Terry against West Ham, February 2002, excluding extra time. Relieved, which I think is absolutely apt in the way that they sum that one up.
Yeah, I did think of one shithouse moment, Dan, just
You
because
did.
it's time
It's
for
empty
shithouse
here in the
moments.
script, so I was just gonna run by
I
it.
know.
But tell me.
Yeah, much like our midfield was run by all game. But look, I do think the one shithouse moments of the game is somehow Connor Gallagher did not get carded for kicking someone in the chest. I forget which Leeds player, but he full on kicked him in the chest. Somerville, I think it was Somerville. He kicked in the chest, and yeah, that was pretty cool. There was a little bit of aggression in there. Might have been a red card if they would have ever looked at that, but that's fine. But Conor Gallagher, a little bit of shithouse, kicking a Leeds player in the chest, just as it's meant to be from the 70s. How about that?
Look, FA Cup 1970 rules. That goes down as a light foul. It's all good. It's
Yeah, that's
it's
a ticky
okay.
tack foul. That's
Rub
nothing.
some dirt on that one and just keep on running. All right, we're gonna take our
There's
first ad
nothing
break when we get
broken.
back.
Please.
When we get back, we're going to talk about some of the big questions coming out of this match and also looking at some of the very questionable post-match comments from Mauricio Pochettino. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Nick, I wasn't going to put it in there. I was just going to let us talk about it, but you said, no, we're going to put it in. We're going to put in Mauricio Pochettino's post-match comments. So I'll let you cherry pick out of here where you wanted to go first, but there are definitely some things in here that I would say don't instill confidence.
Yeah, so I think because we did our Liverpool match review essentially live right after the game, we didn't get all of the quotes in real time from Poch, and so if you were like, "Hey, where are the guys breaking down the post Liverpool? We were playing for extra time things." We were pissed off about it. We were just pissed off about it after we recorded, so we didn't actually get to record that bit. I would say that some of these quotes are on par with those quotes. Let me just read them to you. We needed this result. It wasn't a great performance, of course. Credit to Leeds. They are a team that is full of confidence, is a very strong team, and is doing fantastic in the championship and near the top of the table. That's the way he let it off today.
Well, that's all fair because those would be accurate statements about Leeds and their current run in the season, right? So I guess trying to devil's advocate just a bit, it would be right to praise Leeds because they are doing a good job this season.
Right, but that's the lead to the entire thing, no pun intended. He then said it was tough for us, even when you concede after even more when you concede after a few minutes. But I think the character we showed after the situation is something to learn for the team, and in the end, we're so happy. Feels like we've had to learn that lesson a lot this year, and yet still haven't. The third part, which I thought really dicey, we avoided extra time, scored at the end, and are in the quarterfinal, which was our objective. Is it? Or is winning the whole fucking thing your objective? It's always tough when you lose a final in extra time and only have 72 hours to recover. Fair enough. That's always difficult. Today, the effort was massive again, and I must say thank you to the players for that massive effort. It was not. It was not a massive effort. We have seen this team put in massive efforts against City at the Etihad. Massive effort. This was light jogging across the field. So, I think it's fine to try and paper over the cracks of whatever the hell this was today, Dan. And by no means are these quotes as bad as maybe the "we played for extra time" quote, all that sort of stuff post Liverpool Cup final. But Sheesh, man. I I don't know if I could give him a script or something to help him out here, but it's just not. It's There's nothing in there that's like, oh, we're definitely going to take this and move the ball forward now. We're definitely going to go try and win this whole fucking thing. We're gonna apply some of these lessons on Saturday against Brentford. There's like nothing in there that's like it's like we survived and he was tired, and so he gave some bad quotes.
Look, I wish the quotes were better. It is a results based business, and getting a win in any way, shape, or form is always appreciated. This is one of the uglier wins in recent memory, a win that should never have been in the balance in any way, shape, or form. The fact that we went down within 8 minutes says a lot about where this team was at mentally in the hangover from the game against Liverpool, which, to be fair, felt like we were going to sleepwalk into this one. I think that was going to be the most obvious thing that we would expect to the start of this match, given the way it was in the 118th minute that we saw the Virgil van Dijk header go in against us. I expected us to look flat starting it, and so like that didn't surprise me. I mean, I think advancing barely, looking generally worse in almost every position on the day against a very good championship side who look ripe to come back into the Premier League and have a little fun doing it. I think the question to me is how should we like people are like, oh, how should I feel about this, or like I feel terrible that we won, and like I think all those feelings are valid, right? It is valid to say that this was an ugly win. That yes, it's great that we advanced, but to still have questions about like what are we working towards? How are we actually progressing? Because we're backing into things and getting it done, but it's not convincing in any way, shape, or form. It is not building confidence. It's more of a luck situation. It's, hey, I think I'm going to flip a coin and we'll win today or we'll lose today. And I don't know what we should expect. I mean, there's things like one step beyond playing after beating Leeds. I think we chatted to a couple people who
Oh,
were very shocked because that typically was a song that when Chelsea had a really momentous result or victory, you would
big
hear that
moment.
play. Yes. Beating City or, like a key match in a title run, supporters booing off players. I mean, Sterling noticeably booed off in this match. Like, it does not feel good right now. And I think it's fair as a supporter for you to not feel good about where Chelsea are at right now because Chelsea's not inspiring confidence in on the pitch or off the pitch activity.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be very clear about the performance today. I mean, when you say that we looked worse than Leeds for most of the match, I would say of the 90 minutes, we looked worse than them for 60 of those 90 minutes. Like we had a 200 million pound plus midfield just get passed around all day again. Some good moments in there, but some kind of shit moments as well. We had these vaunted attackers who couldn't put a touch in or couldn't put a pass in the final third. And all the while, they kept growing in confidence because they knew that we were weak and not confident. Like, be very clear, Daniel Farka is trying to win the championship. This was a side quest that he didn't really want to participate in. I think because of the gravitas of this matchup, of this game, like the supporters wouldn't totally let him abandon this one, right? But he put out a B side today and eventually brought on, just like we did, some of the players who were on the bench who could really make an impact, and luckily they didn't. But those young kids were destroying us for the first 10 minutes and then beating us pretty handily for the last 45 of the game. Like, is that good enough to anybody? I mean, if we were in the championship and that happened, maybe okay, we would understand that. This is a Premier League fucking side. It's a Premier League side. We just went toe to toe with Manchester City, what seems like a year ago, but was really only 10 days ago. We just lost to Liverpool in the cup final 3 days ago after 118 minutes of absolutely abhorrent shit football. And now the slide at the bottom is complete by playing a terrible, terrible game against Leeds. Getting lucky that we had 3 moments of magic where the ball actually went into the back of the net against a kind of subpar defense. Farke's not really a defensive manager. If you've ever watched his Norwich sides get torched multiple times, like the playing one step beyond after this was a joke to me. Like I can't believe that was the choice that was made. And I know the DJ has to do something to pump up people after that because it was so bad to watch. But like I don't blame anyone for that state in a stadium today at Stamford Bridge for feeling kind of gross about that performance. And your point, Dan, which is I think the next section here is like, how do we even gauge progress now? Because I just named 3 results within the span of 10 days that are so vastly different in their construction that I have no fucking idea what this team is going to do next. Like, we could easily go out against Brentford, a team that we have struggled against, to be candid, and beat them 4-0 or lose 4-0. Those are both on the table on Saturday.
It's a tough one. I just wanted to think about where we're heading because it's 80 days as of day that this podcast drops until the end of this season, which is
But who's counting?
me. 124 days until the new book year starts. So July 1st, when we'll technically be in the 2024-2025.
That's for our counting heads out there, baby. Let's go. Champions of amortization. Let's go.
Yeah, all about those P&L statements, baby. And then 170 days until the new season begins. And so, like, I think I've come to terms with the fact that like this season is not ending on a lot of highs unless some real magic just takes over. And so I'm looking at it as 170 days from now, you're going to have an opportunity to take a crack at this again and to likely try to finish top 4. You maybe in summer over summer are probably not going to be ready to fight against Manchester City for the title. But maybe the 2 through 4 spots are very fluid, in a season over season. Maybe there's some regression from some of the teams that seem to be a little bit more consistent this season above us on the table. So how are we going to get there? And like, do you have confidence with the remaining fixtures we have, with the one competition that we're left in for a potential domestic trophy, that we can show something, that we can do something that is going to restore confidence from the supporters at the board level, from the sporting director organization, and the players, that like there is a general thought or guide rail for how we're going to get into a better position next season. I think that's where, like, looking at some of the segments of this match, playing Alfie Gilchrist as a left back that was really more of a left wing, Mikhailo Mudryk as a winger that ended up being as more of a free roaming number 10, starting Sanchez when you've seen Petrovic continue to play above him in terms of quality while he's been out. It leads me down a path that our coaching in general is not at the level it needs to be for a player improvement standpoint. We have all these young players who maybe have not improved, I would say, as much as you would hope they would under a manager who's been touted as someone who can build with a very young side. And then you still have players who are not necessarily going to be or should not be starters heading into next season based upon this is exhibit A, right? Like if they can't do a better job than the players that Leeds have, and when some of these players are not actually even the main starters for Leeds, because as you pointed out, this was the side quest. The Fark was like, I guess I'm going to go on with 6 starters benched. That's showing you that we do have some players that are not at the level, and how are you going to move on from them?
I mean, I think a worrying sign today as we look towards the time left in this season is all we heard when Poch was hired after an injury-riddled 2022-2023 season was how this team was going to get healthy and how they were going to get fit, right? How they were going to be able to sustain this high-intensity game plan that Poch wants to put out. Now, injuries are not the management team's fault, right? Injuries happen. Do I wish we had far less of them? You're absolutely fucking right, I do. So put that to one side. But we heard that that was going to be an outcome of this new fitness regime, right? What's really scary to me is I saw this team walking basically after the 60th minute today. They looked gassed. The players who were substitutes came on and looked gassed. Mikhailo Mudryk has played 2 games in a month. Even him, at the end of his time in this game, wasn't like full speed Mudryk, and he's just been kind of lifting weights for a month. Like, God bless Gilchrist, who gave it everything he had, even though he was clearly uncomfortable on the left-hand side for most of this game. Trevo just coming back from an injury. Enzo and Caicedo, Gallagher, gassed. Completely gassed. And so if you're looking at our prospects to the end of the season, and that is the case, one, your team is probably going to suffer more injuries because they are gassed. And when you're gassed physically, you get your mind goes as well. That's why Gallagher ends up kicking someone in the fucking chest today. And 2, what does that mean for squad selection in big games through the end of the season? And 3, what does that mean for management adjustments to the game plan through the end of the season? If you know that your players are not able to, 1, string 2 good performances together at all this season, and 2, aren't physically fit enough to play this high intensity game, what are you, Poch, and crew going to do to adjust the game plan to make this team be able to survive through the end of the season with the limited resources that are available to us right now, without just saying, hey, Ishe Samuel Smith, you're playing the last 10 matches of the season because we got nobody else. I mean,
I would tell you there were some people who were excited. There were some people though who were excited to potentially see him play on the in the left back role.
I agree, but like that's not a plan. That's not an integration plan. That's a dear God, we have nobody else to play. So much like we did to Lewis Hall last year, right? So all these questions are what I have in my head. Like whatever, feel however you want to feel about this game today. You know, Chelsea barely edged it out against a championship side who will likely be in the Premier League next season, but are not a Premier League side. You know, that Leeds team as it's currently constructed would finish like Burnley next year in the Premier League. They're not good. They're fine, but they're not Premier League worthy. And they play too open. They would get decimated by most of the teams in the Premier League. We scored 3 goals on them and we're shit. So it's like, you know, you really try and project them forward. It's not going to be a whole lot of fun for them unless they have significant upgrades. I'm just looking ahead. I'm like, I don't understand how we finish this season well right now.
I mean, you're only looking at 1 or 2 more times this season where you're going to have very quick, I would say less than 3 days or 3-day turnarounds in terms of the matches that we have left, given the
Fair.
lack of additional competition. So, I mean, that does help the squad selection standpoint a little bit. I mean, he's going to be forced to rely upon certain players in terms of his attack, like Nico Jackson as the main striker. There's no other option for a replacement for him at the moment. So there are some situations where it's a good forcing function. I would say, as we kind of, before you take a look at like what else happened and the next kind of draw ahead, I mean, were there any other player performances on like a positive standpoint, or things that you're like stock rose a little bit today that you appreciated from an individual player? I mean, I think you mentioned this idea that we did have players who looked a little bit out of it. Like I appreciated some of the runs that Gusto was making on the day. Like he plays a hard game,
Mhm.
and like he gave I thought was a lot. He didn't look great throughout the entirety of the match, but I mean, credit to him for pushing and grinding in that regard. I mean, Connor, when he came out, grinded really hard as well. Good shift from him. I mean, Nico didn't, again, nobody had good complete performances, but when you think about how some of these players were, 120-minute players or 90-minute players just a couple days ago, like, I guess that's where I give them a little bit more credence, and I would look to how does the manager try to solve that a little bit more with some of the selection, and
Yeah.
like some of that selection didn't work out for him well.
I would say the one interesting part, so like Trev coming back in for a full start is good news, right? We need center backs all over the place, especially considering Colwell just coming back off an injury. Disasi has played all year consistently. We don't think we're going to have Batty Shield. We're certainly not going to have Thiago Silva for a little bit. Like Trev coming back is a breath of fresh air. Mudryk playing as a number 10 was a little interesting to me. I think what you get from that, if you are going to play Mudryk, which is not my preferred option right now, just to be very clear about that, but if you are going to play him in like we need to give some of our other attackers a break, and Nkunku is going to be out for another month, probably through the end of the season, if we're honest, like that is an option that doesn't hurt you as bad defensively as when he plays on the wing. And he did have a really great finish today, just to be fair to him. Like I thought the pullback that he got was not the easiest to deal with, and he did
All
finish
three
it well. And I
finishes were
think it was
great.
really nice.
They were all
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's a really good point. All three finishes were great. So I would look at that. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot else positive to take out of this, but I think those two were it for me.
Well, as we talk about positives, Chelsea are through to the next round. Chelsea did get the news early on that we would be getting to face the winner of the Leicester City game, which they beat Bournemouth just the other day. So that was nice for us. We get to play the number one and number two championship sides, recently demoted Premier League teams. Though I will say that we swerved Man City, Newcastle, Liverpool, Man United, and then Wolves. So it was nice in that regard that we, I don't know, had a more favorable draw than others.
I mean, by looking at this bracket, our run will either be over in the next round or the round after that. So, I think that'll probably be about done and dusted if we
Well,
are to play
to be
the
fair,
winner.
just need to win two more games, 1-0. That's all I need to do, Nick.
Yeah, we've kept a ton of clean sheets this year, Dan. So that makes a ton of sense. as long as Leicester and either City or Newcastle don't start a person who's never scored a goal in a senior match before, we should be just fine. So boom, let's go get him, Tiger.
Well, look, I think that is going to do it for us reliving the painful memory of a victory against Leeds, Dirty Leeds, in the FA Cup. But stick around because we're going to break into our conversation with Rog Bennett from Men in Blazers, talking a little bit about the more positive elements of football, the togetherness of friends who do this show and of the greater footballing community and what Men in Blazers is building. So stay tuned and enjoy that right after these ad breaks.
All right, Chelsea fans. Well, we've got a special segment coming at you, something a little bit different, but hey, perks of the Men in Blazers Media Network. We've got Raj here. How's it going, Raj?
Oh, it is a joy to be with you. London is blue, gents. I feel like Cole Palmer escaping Manchester City and arriving at Stamford Bridge for the first time, just saying, I'm going to unleash my chilly celebration here, game after game after game. And honestly, I'm just delighted that you gents have made the terrible decision to ride with us.
Well, I mean, this is what we're doing though. We're doing our intro episode finally. We announced earlier this month, of course, that we were joining the network, and we're getting some time with you just to talk about everything that we have going on, everything that the network has going on, and just kind of reintroduce ourselves to the vast array of characters here.
We genuinely are thrilled about this moment. I can't remember where I first met you guys. I think I may have guested on the show when you were slumming it one week. But I've been blown away by the whole operation, the London is Blue operation, just the joy, the depth of knowledge, the passion. Also, behind the scenes, the hard graft, really the grind. It is a grind building something as you built something, and that we are in the process of at the Men in Blazers Media Network. But more than anything, the value alignment, the joy we get out of watching football is the joy you get out of watching football. And to be able to partner with you in this moment when football is about to go over the top in the United States of America, I'll just say we're so happy to be with it.
We're just happy to add more sub to that suboptimal. I mean, that was really the goal here.
Oh, how low can you go? Honestly, you guys are the one professional thing we have about our whole operation. I shouldn't say that now that Sam Lewis
Yeah, I
has
was
just
about to
joined.
say.
Yeah. I shouldn't say that about Hurt Gomez. I shouldn't say that about Tyler Adams. I shouldn't say that about Rory Smith. I just put myself in that category. But I am fascinated because I do know from our listenership, when you are, and there's many Americans who've loved English football for decades, but we're also all of us caught up in this phenomenon where so many have had their hearts and minds stolen by the Premier League, really since 2014. Oh, and then even beyond that, World Cup to World Cup, newer fans. And so really, fine-tuned as to why a certain American, if I walk around Portland, Maine, for instance, that beautiful city, so many over-indexing Arsenal fans, which I've come to realise just the general pathos of the cold Maine winter just sets you up to be a hardy, tenacious Arsenal fan, always dreaming, always optimistic, always shattered dreams. I can go city by city, but to fall in love with Chelsea is really a complex reality. I know from our fans and their fan journeys. Why did you guys, by way of introduction, just choose that blue way of life?
Well, I think the fun part for me was watching good old Fox Soccer Channel back in the early 2000s, right? Channel 212. Saw one Petr Cech, because I was a goalkeeper myself, stand on his head in Euro 2004. And I said, it's probably about time I pick a team. And followed him to Chelsea, and it's been a dream ever since.
It was a one-player connection that's fallen into really a way of life for you, a religion. I do admire that. What about you, gents?
Well, I think it actually follows the same pattern because just like many, it's a revolving door at Chelsea with players. So you find a player you like who comes into Chelsea, for me, Michael Ballack, and you stay, but that player eventually leaves. So you try, yeah, I think the tenuous connection we all tend to find is that it's a player that we love or we kind of adore who ends up coming into Chelsea, coming into Stamford Bridge, wills their way into our hearts, and then leaves.
God, Dan, I've got to say, I hear that a lot about many players. For Chelsea, it's probably over indexes, Eto'o, Drogba, those kind of giants. I think you might be the first human being who said, I fell in love with Chelsea because of Ballack. That's a very singular choice, Dan. What was it about the Ballack, that tank, that drew you to forever commit your life?
Who doesn't love
Bridge?
a swashbuckling German running through their midfield? I mean, that is just a phenomenal thing to have as a part of an attacking unit.
I can tell you the answer to that. I think the answer is probably Gilberto Silva. I was working for ESPN 2014. Ballack was working for ESPN World Cup coverage. So was Gilberto Silva. Ballack he's quite forceful in his views off the field. Like there's two ways. There's his way and there's the wrong way. And we were watching the Germany-Brazil game. All of us packed in there. Ruud van Nistelrooy's in there. Steve McManaman's in there. The great peacemaker Julie Foudy in there. Lalas was floating around in there. It was packed. And as you know, didn't go well for Brazil. 7-1 was the score. I think by the time it was like 2 or 3-0, 3-0. Michael Ballack just stood up in a room full of Brazilians. There's Brazilian makeup people, Brazilian producers, Brazilian camera people, all kinds of Brazilians in there. Michael Ballack just leapt up from the couch, bellowed, a bit like the Dark Knight. Like I can't even do it. It was like, ha, ha, ha. And then he shouted out, "This is too easy." and Gilberto Silva leapt off the couch and had to be held back from attacking him. So the answer to your question, who could love that, Dan? It's probably Gilberto Silva.
Wasn't ready for that, but there couldn't be any way better to answer that question. Amazing. Panic room days. Gotta love it.
Yeah, I Raj him the case study for kind of what we're all doing here, which is my best friend got me into it. And he saw Chelsea play the MLS All Stars in a summer tour back in 2005. And then I roomed with him the following year at college, and now we're here. It is that simple.
God, I love that also, Nick, to be candid. Just one random coincidence, your friend happening to watch that, a butterfly flapping its wings, and then years on, 19 years on now, you, Nick, have just dedicated your life to building London is Blue. Just these conversations over and over, just because of random chance. To me, that's the joy. I've said this story a couple of times. There's a Tottenham fan I watched Tottenham Everton about 10 years ago who had a Tottenham tattoo on his forearm. And I asked him, Everton actually won that game. I asked him, why? I love the way I've got to say that. It means nothing to the story. It's me proving myself to myself. But I said to him, why have you got a Tottenham tattoo? Why do you support Tottenham? And he said, my last name is Thompson. Spurs used to be sponsored by Thompson Holidays. So long ago, that company's gone bankrupt, I think now. But he goes, my last name's Thompson. They had Thompson on their shirts. Boom. And I was like, oh my God, that random nothing reason. You now have their logo tattooed forever on your forearm. That is the joy that a tiny thing, and as you guys all prove, tiny reason, just the depths of how far you've kind of dived into. You're all nodding as I'm saying this, and I love it. The depths to which you've dived into Chelsea madness, Chelsea pathology, Chelsea sociopathic levels of Chelsea-ness. It's really admirable.
Well, I mean, you know this too. I mean, we had a bit of a tough League Cup final result, and what followed was a sad nap after that, and that is now just part of the game.
Oh, yes. The sad nap. I'm very used to those as an Everton fan. It's Brendan McCarthy, our second ever guest on the television show, the ex-MLB pitcher, now Phoenix Rising co-owner, who coined that phrase. He said that there's nothing greater than watching a 7:30 in the morning game in which your team loses on a Saturday morning, and then you go back to bed and have a, quote, sad nap. I have had many of those. And it was fascinating, the Carabao Cup. I mean, ultimately, if one of the many, many chances that you had to finish was taken, we'd be sitting here having a very different narrative of the Pochettino era, of the clearly. We'd be talking about the Carabao was for Mourinho, a foundational win, the first trophy he won in building a whole era of success. Can Pochettino and Burnley now? They didn't go in. Kelleher, a man on fire. No one loves to play for penalty kicks and to take the winning penalty more than that man. And he was just smiting everything, like with his wrists of a biblical onanist. And ultimately, if one of them had crapped in, you would have just been like completely different. You'd be different human beings right now. You wouldn't all be looking so sullen.
Well, I tell you what, that's what 10 years of podcasting about Chelsea would do to you, Raj.
But it's not just you. I do think Chelsea over-index, and this is why another reason we're overjoyed to partner with London is Blue. Americans with fresh eyes choosing teams. So many plumb for Chelsea. And to analyze it very quickly, I mean, I'd love to know how you're experiencing it with your own fan base, but thinking it through, there's complex reasons. Number one, obviously, it's a London thing. I do think London teams over-index with American fans anyway, because they can, easily travel, easily see them. There's something about London itself. I think the stylish nature of the history, and you can also practically get to them on the tube. Two, winning things. Chelsea won things at this time when the American wave hit the Premier League. Mourinho, intriguing. Iberian Bobby Knight, who won things as well as threw chairs. Speaking to a lot of the NBA players, I mentioned them earlier, Drogba and Eto'o, an Ivorian and a Cameroonian, just self-confident in their identities, were just truly I mean, just remarkable callings to this Chelsea team for different reasons. Pulisic to the more recent newcomers, obviously was a siren lulling sailors onto the rocks of Chelsea. So I'd guess between those things, Mourinho, the capital city, Pulisic, Drogba, Eto'o, you guys have probably had more going for you than almost any Premier League club.
It has been quite the high to ride over the period of time, but there've also been lows. Chelsea even threatening a relegation zone into our second season, which was quite the interesting period to podcast. And I would say we've grown up since then, though, because there were periods of time where we would take the day off because we hadn't matured enough yet as a podcast host group to channel our feelings appropriately. We had
You
not
take
gotten in
weeks
touch
off when you were 2 down. Is that true?
Never.
in the very early days.
I love that. I love that. Hold on. I should employ. I'd take bloody whole seasons off. The Sam Allardyce season, I would have taken off. I love that. I mean, it's also funny. It's like we've had this with United fans over the past year. Had it with Arsenal fans in the event. Why do you guys hate Arsenal so much? This is in the Wenger years. And we're kind of just reporting on where they are and what they're doing. And we always have to say, if they were winning a couple more games, we'd be able to say nicer things. We're just reporting what happens. And I do think in this moment, the Chelsea reality is complex, is nuanced. I do believe the ownership group desire to return Chelsea to that kind of winning pedestal. And it's fascinating. I do think they have realized they have made real mistakes along the way, and that learning curve is really what I'd be focusing on if I was a Chelsea. That's what I'd be hoping. You look at FSG in their early days, what they had, the most American owners have not had, is an incredible learning curve. They did make mistakes, but they didn't make the same mistakes twice. And ultimately, that's what I would be cheering for. New mistakes.
I mean, it's an interesting point, right? Because I think we kind of have, over the years, positioned ourselves as not hot take artists as to what's happening in the world of Chelsea week to week, that we try and keep things level headed for the most part, which in football is really difficult because it's so full of passion and enthusiasm, and that can oftentimes boil over. But we both aim to be, I think, accessible for folks who are, relatively new into it, and deep enough for folks who are lifelong supporters, so that everyone kind of gets what they're looking for from our show. And we've done that, I think, pretty well over the years.
Well, what I'd say is what I admire about you and what Men in Blazers Media Network listeners who have just discovered London is Blue through this. One of the reasons I love you guys is the passion, the detail. It's almost like an extension. If you want more, if you want richer, if you want more thoughtful, if you want true, kind of like micro depths of Chelsea passion, Chelsea insights, Chelsea hugs, Chelsea camaraderie, a sense that there's a brighter day coming. And I do believe there will be for Chelsea Football Club. I mean, ultimately, that's why we wanted to partner with you, to begin to offer that in a richer, definitely more thoughtful, undoubtedly more thoughtful, and also with more hair.
Checking that box very graciously, but yeah, I mean, to your point, it's been good. We cover the men's team, the women's, the academy. We've got journalists like Matt Law and Naz Kinsella on as well, and
fantastic.
Yeah, we just try to make it entry level and then go deep. We do the newsletters and things like that as well. And
I love your newsletter.
Well, we've got a brilliant person helping with that, obviously, but for us, we've really kind of tried to rip as many pages out of your book as we can along the way,
and
which has been fun.
Was your great mistake, and that was a huge mistake. In all honesty, that's why we wanted to partner with you, to offer those new levels, that same passion, the same values, I think the same joy. Please God, the same joy again. We couldn't be happier. Genuinely, we couldn't be happier to ride with you.
Oh,
Rog,
pleasure.
We've followed you guys for a long time. Obviously, I've listened to you since 2011. So I've really put in a shift over the years, and I think the other guys have as well. And part of what we wanted to do here is not only, kind of cross pollinate between the audiences and stuff like that, but give folks a sense as to what's coming down the pipeline for Men in Blazers, what Men in Blazers is trying to do, what it's trying to become, the opportunity that we have coming up over the next few years. Like, can you kind of espouse on some of that?
Espousing is a word I don't use enough. I like it. I'm going to try and use it once a day. I'm just going to insert it into my vocabulary to my wife. And now I will espouse. I love. I'm happy to. I guess I'm deflecting the question because I find it all quite awkward talking about myself. Normally, I'm very happy to interview anybody, but talking about our own crap. You've asked the question, so I'll give you an honest answer. We are living in unprecedented days for those who love the game that we love in the nation we adore. The Copa is coming, the Olympics, the women, please God, will ride back to wonder right after that. Then we're slapping right into the FIFA Club World Cup, which no one really knows what the hell that is, especially FIFA. But it's coming. By the way, it's late summer. Every major team, is coming to the United States again to play before our loving eyes, and we take that for granted at this point, which is truly a remarkable moment in time. And then we got the Men's World Cup proper crashing onto our shores. Please God, the Women's World Cup the summer after. We've always joked on this show that America is soccer is America's sport of the future, as it has been since 1972. But that future is very much now. And our goal is just to continue to do what we do. Essentially, all I'm trying to do is have a conversation with our fan base about the experiences, high, low, glorious, debilitating, confusing. We're speaking on the day Everton had 4 points given back to them from the 10-point deduction, and we just know those 4 points will be ripped out of our happy claws once again when we get the second punishment. All of the human emotions, to share it with the fan base here on the men's side, the women's side, globally, domestic, club and international, and to just create joyous conversations of meaning, with the likes of Sam Mewis, who's the editor-in-chief on our fast-growing women's side, with Hercules Gomez, who looks at football through a very different kind of very CONCACAF first lens, which I adore and admire. With Rory Smith, with Tyler Adams, on and on and on and on. And so that's really our hope, is to have these conversations against everything that's important to our fan base. Chelsea are very important to our fan base. So to have you leading that conversation is just, God, it's a total and utter joy for all of us.
Well, obviously, we are super excited and hope we can bring some more to the network. But obviously, Raj, it's a new chapter for us. We've jumped in head first, and we're going to continue to take advantage of the awesome resources you have. But again, thank you so much for coming on, talking a little bit of footy with us. And as always, Chelsea fans, if you haven't subscribed yet, get on over to the Men in Blazers channels. We will put links in the descriptions. This is our home. This is our family, Raj. We appreciate you and the massive effort.
If I am family,
I'm
like that creepy uncle who turns up for family events and he comes
Not
so
in the
often, no one wants to disinvite him. I will say I do hope Everton stay up in the Premier League just so that we have the chance to talk meaningfully. At least twice a season, maybe even when you beat us in one of the cup competitions. But you can tell the listeners how they can follow everything London is Blue. Just tell them in delicious detail.
I mean, the delicious detail is at London Blue Pod on pretty much every social platform on the planet. If it pops up, if it's a new one, we'll be there.
Guys, I want to say again, I've met you. I'm blown away by the grind, the graft. It is so hard to build what you have built. It's so hard to do. I mean, what we've all done is through, it's like being in a band playing, gigging small room after small room after small room, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, loving that listenership, caring to that two-way conversation with that listenership. And so to watch you build and build and build, it really has been a thing of wonder. And all I say is to more, to more, to more.
Cheers. And with that, we're going to wrap Up the Blues, up the Blazers. We're out.
All right. Thanks to Raj for joining us, getting a little bit of time here on the feed with us. Again, if you haven't had a chance to enjoy any of the Men in Blazers content, including their wonderful women's game podcast that Sam Ewis is doing, you should get involved with that. Really, really great content over there. We're so happy to be a partner of theirs. But that's going to do it. This match review is done. It's over. We want to just place this match in our history banks and delete and move forward to this weekend when Chelsea take on Brentford. So we'll have a match preview out for you. We'll enjoy those times. And who knows, maybe baby Busby will be here by that point in time and we'll get a chance to see their first Chelsea win.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we need some good luck charm. Maybe it's baby Busby that's going to do it for us.
So that's what we're going to wish into the world, but hope you're staying safe and well. And thank you so much for listening and supporting the podcast. As always, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Always appreciate those. You can also send us emails at contact@londonisbluepodcast.com. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.